All right, so write down in your math notebook, our math goal today is to multiply fractions by whole numbers. Write down everything you know about multiplying fractions and then come back to me. All right, so let's look at our first problem. It says Sacramento is 15 miles away. If you have driven 1/3 of this distance, how many miles have you gone? So remember, this is multiplication because we have of. Remember, of tells me it's also multiplication. You've driven 1/3 of this distance. Sacramento is 15 miles away. You've driven 1/3 of this distance. So one way to look at it is when we did our comparison bars, right? So I know it's 15. I know it's got to equal 15, and I know it's broken up into thirds, right? So remember, it's the same thing as 15 divided by 3, which is 5. So if I were to do that, I get 5, 10, 15. This is 1/3, 2/3. So I've gone 5 miles. Another way to look at it is to actually do the math, right? So I have 15 times 1/3 of this distance. I know it's multiplication times 1/3. So 15, I need a third of 15, which is the same thing. I rewrote it 15 over 1. Remember, I put a 1 underneath for my denominator, and then I multiply times 1/3. 15 times 1 is 15. 1 times 3 is 3. So it's 15 over 3, which is 15 divided by 3, which is 5. And as you can see in my picture here, also it is 5 miles. So you've gone 5 miles. Isn't this way easier than addition and subtraction with fractions because you have to find a common denominator? No common denominator here. Just multiply numerator, denominator times denominator. So much easier, right? Phew. Okay. Okay. If you've driven 2/3 of the way to Sacramento, how many miles have you gone? Remember, 2/3 of the way. So of something, 2/3 of something means what? Multiplication. Good. Multiplication. All right. So let's look at that one. All right, so again, I wrote my equation, 15 times 2/3, and that's not a unit fraction anymore, but it's the exact same thing, okay? I'm gonna put 15 over 1, I'm gonna rewrite it, times 2/3. 15 times 2 is 30, 1 times 3 is 3. 30 over 3 means 30 divided by 3, which is 10. And if you see of my picture over here, how I broke it apart, 2/3 is 5 and a 5 makes 10. So there you go, two ways to look at it. You can draw the picture, you can do the math. I suggest doing the math because it's probably going to be more accurate than drawing the picture. You can make more mistakes that way. Okay, let's look at another one. San Francisco is 24 miles away. It's not really, right? It's just an example. It's more like 70 or 80. Gus has driven 1/4 of the way. Again, I'm highlighting of the because that tells me to multiply. Gus has driven 1/4 of the way. Emma has driven 3/4 of the way. How many miles has Gus driven? How many miles has Emma driven? So, two-step different problem. They're asking me for two different things, right? They're asking me for Gus and Emma, but it's still the same concept, okay? So if you feel like you know how to do this by yourself, go ahead and do it. If not, stay. If you feel like you do, pause the video and do it and then come back to me. If not, just stay with me. Don't pause and just stay. Okay, so the first thing I did Gus. So Gus has driven 1/4 of the way. So it's all the total distance 24. So it's 24 times 1/4, which is the same thing as 24 over 1 times 1/4. 24 times 1 is 24. 1 times 4 is 4. 24 divided by 4 is 6. Emma has driven 3/4. So again, not a unit fraction, but it's the same thing, right? So 24 times 3/4 is the same thing as 24 over 1 times 3/4. I did 24 times 3 and I got 72. If you didn't get 72, you probably just did a little mathematical error and try it again. 1 times 4 is 4. 72 divided by 4 is 18. And then as you can see, here's my picture. I broke it apart. Here's my 6, here's my 18. So I still get, it's still broken up into fourths, and I'm still getting the same thing. Okay, so just another way to look at it. Okay, you try one. Auburn is 40 miles away. I'm not exactly sure how many miles away Auburn is. If you could probably ask Mr. Bittner, right? He would know. But it's just for an example, so don't quote me on this. Auburn is 40 miles away. Sacramento is 1/5 of the way there, and Rockland is 2/5 of the way. Of the, what does it mean? Multiplication, right? Of something. What does it mean? Of something, because you're taking a part of something. So how many miles is Sacramento? How many miles is Rockland? Go ahead and stop the video and do those and then come back to me. Okay, so you should have rewritten the problem as 40 times 1/5, which is the same thing as 40 over 1 times 1/5. 40 times 1 is 40, 1 times 5 is 5. 40 divided by 5 is 8. Remember, the fraction bar means what? Division. Yeah, division. Okay, 40 times 2/5. 40 times 2 is 80. 1 times 5 is 5. If I divide 80 by 5, I get 16. So that's how far it is. All right, so for this one, it's the exact same problem, except for now I'm asking you to compare the distances. So how many times as far is Sacramento than Rockland to Auburn? So this is one of those comparison where we use the comparison bars. And remember, we put what we're comparing, the person we're asking about. So what are we asking about? We're asking to compare Rockland, right, to Sacramento. So try that. See if you remembered how to do that from yesterday, comparing Rockland to Sacramento, and see what you get. Stop the video and see what you get. Okay, so if I'm comparing, Rockland was 16, right? That's what I got for my answer. And Sacramento was 8. That's what I got for my answer. So it's Rockland, which is 16, divided by Sacramento, which was 8. So Sacramento is 2 times as far than Rockland to Auburn. Okay? All right. All right, so what did you learn today? So write down what you learned. Proof of learning by solving a problem. So do a problem similar. You don't have to do the comparison bar one. Just do a problem like we did, like the other ones. So do something similar. Go back through the video and see what numbers I used and maybe pick something else. Pick similar numbers and then do a reflection or a question you may have.